Hello everyone, Scott Friesen here at Simpletivity, helping you to get more done and enjoy less stress. And I am so excited to be back for this live stream. This is actually the first Ask Scott Anything live stream in quite some time. So thank you for taking time out of your day to join me, or if you happen to be watching the recording later on, I'm glad that you're here as well. In today's Ask Scott Anything webinar, I'm going to be trying a few new things, a few different things that I haven't done in the past, but I'm so looking forward to answering as many of your questions as I can, whether that's related to productivity, time management, apps, technology, whatever you'd like to talk about, I'm here for you. I'm excited to answer as many questions as I possibly can. Now, for those of you who have been a subscriber to the Simpletivity channel for some time, you may remember that I used to host an Ask Scott Anything live stream just like this on a monthly basis. But it's been nearly a year and a half. I took a bit of a hiatus, a bit of a break for these live streams, but I'm excited to be back. It's a new year, it's 2021, and I'm hoping to do this again, maybe even twice a month, so I can connect with you, and I hope you enjoy connecting with me as well on this platform. Now, like I said, we're going to be trying out a few things. Number one, if you've got questions, be sure to include them in the live chat. I love to know where people are watching today's live stream, so if you can include that in the live chat as well, that is great. However, I'm also going to be using another tool, and it's something that I've talked about before. In fact, earlier in 2020, I made a video on Slido. And so what you'll see on the screen in front of you here is an invitation to join me at slido.com. Now, all you need to do is just go to your web browser. It can be on your phone. It can be another tab if you're watching this on a desktop or a laptop, for example, and then enter in the event code, which is my name, Scott. And what that's going to allow you to do is to ask questions and see them here on screen. But the bonus for both of us is that not only do you get to ask your questions in this environment, but you get to see other people's questions, more than just the ones on the screen here. And I encourage you to use that upvote, that thumbs up, to vote for other people's questions that you're also interested in hearing, because that's really helpful to me, right? It's going to be very difficult for me to answer everyone's question over the course of this roughly hour live stream, but I want to make sure that I'm answering the things that are most relevant to you. So if you join me at slido.com, you can not only ask your questions, and you can do so anonymously. Remember, no silly, no stupid questions, but you can vote for others as well. You can also just click the link in the description or the pinned comment down below. Then you don't even have to enter anything. If you click that link, you'll go directly here to Slido and get things started off. But why don't we start off with something else that I like to do with Slido? This tool is great for engagement. It's great for participation. I hope as you are conducting and maybe hosting a large number of virtual meetings here in 2021, yeah, that's going to be on our time frame, I think, for some time. This is a great tool to interact and make your meetings more engaging. So I've just put up a poll, and I'd love to hear from you over the next few minutes. When are you most productive? What is your most productive time of the day? Be sure to join me by either clicking that link down below, or you can go directly to slido.com and input hashtag Scott. So a couple of shout outs to Robert, who's calling in or watching today from Southern California, Brian Hunter from Music City, USA, Ken from Greenville. So glad to have you here as a part of today's live stream. So I see that we've got a small handful of you, and it looks like, wow, we've got a lot of early morning risers so far. I'm going to leave this poll up for a little bit as we continue throughout today's Ask Scott Anything. We'll see how things change over time, but it looks like so far we've got a number of you who find that the early morning is your best time of the day. Now, I know for myself, I've experimented, right? I've experimented with a number of things with my own productivity. And I must admit, although I haven't submitted a vote yet here today, I would probably have to throw it in the early morning or at least the before noon crowd. I know for myself, my energy just starts to dip a little bit as the day progresses. And I think for many of us, that's almost natural, right? We have more meetings, we've accomplished more tasks, there's maybe been more surprises in our day as the day goes on and on and on. So there's a lot of things that start to creep up, and it's hard to be at our productive best much later in the day. However, check out how the poll is changing. And that's one of the things I love about Slido is it's dynamic. You can see how things are changing over time. It looks like second place is late at night. So we're either early morning or very late at night. And again, I think some of the same reasoning comes into play. For some of us, we feel at our productive best very late in the day because we've sort of distanced ourselves from other commitments, other surprises, other headaches, for example, or other things that we've dealt with as a part of our day. So for some of us, maybe that more night owl focus, right? Maybe the kids have gone to bed, maybe other things are out of your way. You've already cleaned up the dishes and you've finished dinner. Now is your time to be more productive. So really interesting to see how this plays out. It certainly doesn't look like afternoon is a great period for any of us. It's not exactly the most productive part of much of our day. Well, I might come back to this poll a little later, but let me switch back to the Q&A here. So again, I'm encouraging you to stay within Slido. I'm going to be checking the live chat and the YouTube page as well. So don't get me wrong, I will be going back and forth, but I'm inviting you to participate, maybe use a new piece of technology as we go through this Ask Scott Anything webinar. Live stream, sorry, this isn't so much a webinar as it is a live stream. So let's start off with a few questions here. And one of the nice things is I get to highlight what is the question I'm addressing at any given time. So first question here, what are some apps that you're planning to try in 2021? It is a new year. There's always a large number of applications and technology and websites that I haven't had a chance to get around to try or to dig deep into. And so, yeah, this is a very thoughtful question. What are some things that you can maybe look forward to when it comes to some of my reviews and maybe some future videos here on the channel? Well, I'll tell you right up front, probably one app that really comes to mind that I've had a number of you recommend and suggest that I do a video review on, and that is ClickUp. And I'd love for you to let me know in the chat if you are a ClickUp user, if you've had experience before. I've had a number of people say, Scott, you've got to try ClickUp. It's something that's very easy to use. I've heard there's a little bit of maybe some setup, some configuration that you need to think of up front. Maybe it's not something you can dive in right away, but I've had a lot of people say, Scott, you've got to do some more content, or at least start to do some content on ClickUp. So if you've had some experience with ClickUp, be sure to let me know in the live chat area. Some of the other apps that I'm planning to share a little bit more on, because I know many of you are in this situation where you're looking for more clients or looking for more bookings or just wanting to make scheduling your meetings that much easier. Now, previously in 2020, I did do a video on Calendly and how to set up Calendly so you're familiar with all of the settings and so you can set up Calendly in a way that is efficient and effective for you. I also get an awful lot of comments on a video I produced a few years ago on an extension called Assistant.to, which I used for a number of years when it came to inviting others to appointments and giving them options via email. And the reason why I think I get so many emails about it is because unfortunately Assistant.to is no longer available. They were acquired by another company and you can't really use it as a standalone. You can't use it in the form that it was before. That was one of the reasons why I transitioned to Calendly, but we've got things like Acutely is another very popular tool out there. There's a number of other scheduling tools. That's some of the other apps that I'm planning to look forward to and planning to dive into a little bit more in the coming future. So just a taste, I'd love to hear from you. What are some things that maybe you just started using? What are some things that you just started using at the end of 2020 or here at the beginning of a new year? And if you have other suggestions, be sure to let me know as well. All right, so let's take a look at another question here. Looks like a number of you are asking about Notion and Trello. The question, do you think Notion will overtake Trello this year? So my latest video, technically it is my latest video as of last Thursday, is Trello versus Notion, which is the winner, and not so much which is the better app, but more importantly, that video was about which is the better app for you, because there's no such thing as an ideal solution for everyone, every business, every type of personality, every type of way that we work and the way that we interact with others or collaborate with others. So Notion has certainly got a very huge tailwind, right? A lot of momentum over these last 2 years, and some pretty big names who have started using Notion and talking about Notion on their YouTube channels and other areas, other influencers as well. So I still think that there's a bit of a difference between the two, right? There's a bit of a difference in terms of who the end user is, who their target market is when it comes to Trello and Notion. I don't think that they're necessarily direct competitors. I would say Trello still competes a lot more directly with something like Asana, for example, whereas Notion in many ways, I think directs maybe a little more directly with things like Evernote, some note-taking apps, things that you can be a little more flexible and really customize your layout and that type of thing, right? It really does promote itself as sort of an all-in-one tool. As some of you may know, I did host a live stream about a month ago where I gave away some awards and I let you vote on your favorite apps from the past year. And not only did Notion win the category of Project Management App of the Year, but Notion finished in the top 3 in voting in 3 big categories, including Best Note-Taking App, Best To-Do List, and then, like I said, it won the category of Best Project Management Tool. So I know a lot of you are either using Notion, exploring Notion, or considering using Notion. And I'll admit, even I'm starting to use Notion a bit more for the note-taking and the simple database features, not necessarily for my to-do list, not necessarily for my projects and my to-do list, but it'll be interesting. Trello is still, I forget the numbers of millions, tens of millions of users in which Trello has currently, but Notion, especially if you like to customize your layout, if you like to really dig in deeper, have some sort of simple Excel-like functionality with summing up and adding equations to your tables and calculations, then yeah, you're going to be a big fan of Notion. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the coming year. All right, a couple of you are asking about a Gantt chart app or website, and Vitor, thank you for the question here. Gantt charts, of course, for those of you who are not familiar, is really, it's really Project Management 101. But depending on your level of involvement, you may not be familiar with what a Gantt chart does or exactly how it behaves and how it displays. It's a visual display of a project, broken down into different tasks. And one of the key things about any Gantt chart functionality is really tracking those dependencies, right? And those prerequisites, right? You can't start task number 34 until you've completed task number 33. However, you can go ahead and start on task number 42 whenever you want. As soon as you've completed task number 17, you can go ahead and do task number 43 or something along those lines, and it adjusts with you and so forth. So, there are, I guess the way I would answer this question is that there's not too many tools that are exclusively Gantt chart focused, right? That are only displaying a Gantt chart. It's usually a component or it's a view from a broader project management system. Things like Trello, you can't get a Gantt chart natively, but you can get several add-ons which will show you a Gantt chart. And probably one of my favorite ones is Placker, or more specifically, projects by Placker. It's a power-up within Trello. Now, it does a number of different things, but it has an excellent Gantt chart. So if you happen to be using Trello already for your project management, that can be a great extension, a great power-up for you to consider. Asana, in their paid version, has a very good and robust Gantt chart. I like the way that the Gantt chart is displayed there. Monday.com is another tool which has a variety of different ways in viewing that information. You can view it in a Gantt chart there as well. I'm sort of excited to dive in a little bit deeper. I already mentioned ClickUp. Maybe someone can share with me in the comments, does ClickUp have those types of views? Does ClickUp have a Gantt chart as well? Does it have that capability as a part of its views? So Vitor, thank you so much for the question. So glad to have you on the live stream today. All right, as I mentioned before, if you're wanting to join us here on Slido so you can vote for other questions and submit other questions, it just makes it a lot easier for me to make sure I'm getting to the most relevant questions. I will be switching back to the live chat back and forth to address some of those questions as well. If you'd like to, again, all you need to do is go to slido.com, any web browser. Nothing to install, nothing to download. Just open up a web browser, go to slido.com and enter in the event name Scott, or here on the live stream, just go down to the description or the pinned comment and click the link there. It'll take you right here and you can start participating in the Q&A here as well. All right, next question here. Oh, I didn't mean to check that one off. Let me come back down to my... that question. Oh, I guess maybe I can't find it. That question had to do with, oh no, here's in the archive. See, even I'm getting used to, let me see if I can bring this one back to the, bring this back to the live stream here. This one had to do with Google Contacts. I just wanted to address this really quickly because I've had several of you ask me about this question. About a month ago, I'm going to say, I produced a video on the Google side panel, which I'm assuming many of you, especially those who are Google users, are familiar with. If you are inside Gmail, Google Calendar, or Google Drive specifically, one of those three Google apps, on the right-hand side, you should see a little sliver, a little side panel, which is going to show you some other Google apps and allowing you to interact with them in different ways. And in that video, I showed you some very cool ways in which you can use the Contacts app within that side panel and use it within Gmail. You can almost use it as a bit of a light CRM, show a full history of your conversation with those individuals. You can look up contact information on the fly without leaving the inbox or without leaving that message that you're viewing at that time. But I've had a number of you say, Scott, I can't see it. I don't see it on my end. Why can't I see the contacts? And when will I see the contacts in my side panel? Well, the short answer is by now, I'm hoping that most of you can see the contacts in the side panel. It is often a bit of a slow rollout with Google having millions and millions and millions of users around the world to making sure that everyone gets it. It's sort of unrealistic from a deployment standpoint for Google to just say, okay, instantly everyone's going to get this today. Now, hopefully by now, you can now see that Contacts app in the side panel. If not, maybe just hang tight another week or two, and you should be able to see that Contacts area there. And if you haven't seen that video, make sure you go back and watch it because, again, a lot of really cool tools. Even I was surprised with some of the things I discovered that I could do with that side panel. It's so much more than just a quick view or a sliver view. You can actually link things together, like your notes from Google Keep. You can link that directly to an email or link that directly to a Google Calendar event. So a lot of pretty cool stuff in there within that side panel. All right, let me just dive over. I'm just going to pause for just a second. Keep your questions coming here on Slido, but I am going to pause and just go back over to the live stream because I know some of you are asking your questions here within the live chat. And I want to make sure that I get to some of your both questions and your comments here as well. So Setchen89 says, I'm a ClickUp user. The only drawback is it's so huge and capable. You got to trial and error those items items to see which suits you best. And thank you for the feedback. I've heard that from other users as well, right? I've heard that from other users that, there's a little bit of preparation, a little bit of thought, because there's a lot of options there. Here's some questions here from Arian. If I have to take notes, can I use OneNote and Google Keep side by side? My recommendation when it comes to note-taking apps is typically I recommend that you stick with one, or you make one your primary note-taking tool. The reason being is that you don't want to be second guessing, where am I going for that information? Did I put it here? Did I put it there? Now, you may have a good reason for using two tools at a time. Maybe one is for lengthier and more detailed notes. Perhaps you're a student, or perhaps you're taking very lengthy meeting notes. Maybe OneNote would be a better option for you. Whereas Google Keep, maybe that's better for personal notes. As long as you make a bit of a distinction between the two, like a clear definition between, okay, this type of note goes here and that type of note goes there, then I'm usually okay with having two different apps. But make sure that you're not putting the same type of note in both places, because that's probably going to give you even more headache than anything else. So great question, and hello back to you from India. Thank you for the question, Aaron. Let's see here. What are some other questions here? Louise says, I just started using Microsoft Bookings. It works great. So thanks for sharing. Again, as I'm looking to explore more scheduling tools and perhaps introducing some more how-to and tip videos to you, I'll be sure to check out Microsoft Bookings as well. So that is fantastic. Sean says, I'm a teacher who is looking to utilize Sheets, Google Sheets, with student work. Can I have a student have a tab protected to just them and populate their work in a master? Sean, your question is very, very timely, because I am just in the process of putting together a video all about Google Sheets and protecting and sharing everything from, specific cells to a specific column to a tab to an entire sheet, so you can customize what you want to share and what you don't want to share. So please stay tuned for that particular video. Yes, you can protect Google Sheets at that level. So that's the short answer. Stay tuned for that video where I'll be able to share a bit more details and maybe give you some other ideas of how you can manage those sheets, especially within a school environment. Robert, hello to you. Robert says, hi Scott, I enjoy Trello at the board level, but struggle getting an overview of cards due on a given day. If you forgot to assign yourself, it will not show in my cards how to manage multiple boards. And that's a really good question, Robert. There's a bit of a caveat there, right, within Trello, is that if you are using Trello for your personal use, right, if you are using Trello primarily for yourself and your own tasks, it seems a little ridiculous that you have to assign yourself, right? Assign yourself so you can see what's going on and across multiple boards, right? Across multiple things. One workaround, this may not be the nicest thing to do, but if these boards are truly just for yourself, with Butler automation, you could quite simply and quite easily assign yourself to every card on a particular board automatically, just in a matter of seconds. It would only take you maybe a minute or two to create the automation one time, and then it would be applied to all of those boards. And then you could go to your profile, picture, click on it, and then just see a summary. There's actually a few different ways, and you may be familiar with this already after being a longtime Trello user, is you can see all of your cards across multiple boards, and you can view it and sort it and filter it in a few different ways. So that may not be the answer that you're looking for here, but it's true. By assigning yourself to the card, you probably already have the due date, right? Because that's the other way that Trello is going to be able to filter or sort things. But if you assign yourself to each card, that might make it a little more helpful as a part of it. So keep those questions coming, both in the live chat, but also here in the here in Slido. I'm switching back over to Slido here to see what else we have here. You can ask your own question anonymously if you like. And again, I encourage you to look at the other questions that are coming through. I know we've got more. There's a lot more questions than just the 4 you're seeing on the screen right here. If there's something that you're also interested in hearing me answer, make sure to give it a thumbs up. That's going to bump it to the top of the list, and that's going to help me try to get to it a little sooner than anything else. All right, let's look at this question here. It has to do with Google versus Apple, the ecosystems. What would I choose? Google versus Apple in terms of productivity. Well, I should probably start my answer by saying it's probably going to be a little bit biased because, as many of you may know, I speak a lot about Google products, and Google is already a core part of my productivity systems and my ecosystem. So it's maybe not honest of me to give a great comparison or an unbiased comparison of these two when it comes to Google versus Apple. I think if you are already ingrained, if you're already using several Apple products as a part of your workday or as a part of your current system, right? If you're using a MacBook, if you're using an iPhone, if you have an Apple Watch, if you're using an iPad, if you have several of these devices already, well, there might be a really good reason for you to use the Apple ecosystem, right? With the iCloud and everything else that is integrated. So that might be a good reason to do so right there. But it doesn't mean that you should should automatically, of course, just because you like the hardware, right? Just because you like the tools doesn't mean that you should necessarily like all of the software. When I look at Google versus Apple, to me, that's the first thing that really stands out is software versus hardware. Now, they both have grown to become, Apple has always made both hardware and software. Google now, of course, is making more hardware as well. In fact, I'm holding up the Pixel 5 as we speak. Loving it. Let me know if you want me to do a review or any tips about the Pixel 5 if anyone else is thinking about using Google hardware. But I still think of these two companies as Google software first, okay? Software first, that's their core, and Apple as hardware first. And that's not a knock at their software, right? That's not a knock at their operating systems, but I think at their core, it's about the hardware, right? It's about the physical tools. And then here is the software that comes with it or that we're going to allow you to use within it. Now, I'm not aware of any significant differences or restrictions from using Google within Apple software or within a MacBook or within an iPhone. Love to hear from some of you, maybe who have experience with that. I'm sure there's some of you on today's live stream who are using maybe exclusively Apple products, but are also fully immersed in the Google ecosystem. We'd love to hear your feedback and any tips, tricks, or maybe suggestions here. But that's a great question there. Like I said, I'm probably going to be sticking with Google because not only am I using Google from a software perspective, I am also primarily a PC and Windows based when it comes to my desktop operation. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. Thank you so much for answering that or asking, I should say, asking that question. Sean, it looks like this is the same question. I'm just going to knock that one off about the sheets. Yes, look forward to my answer and giving you more tips on how to share Google Sheets at a variety of different levels in an upcoming notebook or an upcoming video, I should say. Notebook. I'm reading the next question as I'm answering the last question. So this question says, have you tried digital note-taking? If so, which apps would you recommend? So I would say, the majority of my note-taking is digital-based and has been for some time. I did find it interesting in terms of some of the feedback I received from many of you when it came to your favorite note-taking apps and note-taking technology from the previous year. Now, I wasn't surprised that Google Keep won that category and won that category by a significant margin because, as we saw in the previous question, I talk a lot about Google products. Google Keep is an excellent tool, especially if you are new to digital note-taking. If that's something that you're not comfortable with or maybe haven't tried before, maybe you're more used to pen and paper or a notebook or a notepad, Google Keep can be a great entry-level way of getting into that type of digital note-taking. One of the things I was surprised from the award show is how Evernote did not even finish in the top 3 of voting. And that was really surprising to me because Evernote has been sort of this major player, probably the most dominant player when we think of digital note-taking for the last decade. And yet it seems to have fallen off a little bit over the last few years. Some people still sticking with it. I mean, if you're already a longtime Evernote user, it's kind of difficult to get away. It's kind of difficult to transition to something else, but still an excellent tool. I might add their latest feature, their dashboard, their homepage dashboard. I really like what I see there. I mean, that gives some other possibilities and really make it more of a productivity tool than just a note-taking tool or a note repository. I'm going to come back to Notion with this question as well and say that Notion, I love the flexibility of it, not only as a note-taking tool, but how you can directly link to other projects. So if you are creating a project within Notion, you can embed that within a note. You can actually see it within the note. You can format it. Your formatting options are so diverse, right? Are so wide when it comes to Notion. So that might be another tool that you'll want to check out. Even if you're not interested in the to-do list or the productivity tools or the project management side of Notion, just as a note-taking app, I think Notion is absolutely excellent. And then again, we've had a few other questions earlier today. Microsoft OneNote. If you happen to be already immersed in Microsoft Office products, Microsoft OneNote might be a good fit for you as well. Again, a much more fully featured tool. A lot of options there with Microsoft OneNote. I think a lot of people get a little intimidated with OneNote out of the gate, but if you're already using Outlook and Office and Excel and other Microsoft tools on a regular basis, there could be some advantages of using Microsoft OneNote there as well. All right. Question here from Security Bazinga. Love that username or just the name that you're using here for the questions. Is there any schedule maker application you would suggest, Scott? Big fan. Thank you so much. And I'm glad that you can join me live here on today's live stream. So when you ask about a schedule maker application, I might need a little more clarification, and maybe you can let me know in the live chat. I'm interpreting this one of two ways, either something that is actually helping you book your schedule and make scheduling appointments, such as Calendly, right? Such as a thing where you would send out a link and other prospective clients or people that you're meeting with can click and organize a time that fits with your schedule. I'm not sure if you mean that or if you just mean something that's going to help you create your own personal schedule, right? Like you maybe feed it in some information like, okay, here's the things I need to do and how long it's going to take. Here are some meetings I already have existing. Here are some phone calls. I mean, maybe you feed it information and then it gives you an optimized schedule or something along those lines. When it comes to that, I don't have any really good recommendations. I think number one, that's a lot tougher to do. I would love to hear from those who are watching. Are you familiar with such a tool where you simply feed it in the information and then it's going to create the schedule for you? Security Bazinga, maybe you can give me some ideas, or maybe there's something that you found for yourself. If you do mean the former, if you do mean, scheduling applications, I think Calendly is an excellent tool to start with. In fact, if you only have one type of event or one type of meeting, you can use Calendly absolutely free. So you can try it out, experiment with it. one of the options that I use in Calendly all the time is the including the link directly into my emails. There's actually, if you use the Calendly extension, if you use the Calendly browser extension, what you can do is actually put in a mini calendar, like a mini availability. It embeds it right into the email. And so the user doesn't even have to go to the Calendly webpage. They can select the time, the options that work best for them. So if you're interested in that type of functionality, it really, really cuts down on all of the back and forth between people. You may want to select or explore that option here. So I just want to jump back over to the live chat here, going back and forth. Keep your questions coming here within Slido. I love to see the engagement here that we're getting here on Slido. Maybe I'll throw that poll back up one more time to see if maybe there's some other people that have a different time of day where they are most productive. Let's see here as we go with, this is a really good comment here and question here. This is from Imparting Life and Living, an alternative of Notion with offline storage. And this is something that is maybe a bit of a black eye or maybe a bit of a weakness when it comes to Notion so far is the inability to use it offline. Notion, to the best of my knowledge, still does not have an offline mode. And I know there's a few people who are a little hesitant to dive into the deep end with Notion to get all in until it gets that offline mode, because I don't want to be stuck with not being able to access that information. And depending on where you are and maybe the quality of your data and internet connection and all those types of things. So, there are a number of other tools that do have offline storage. Evernote would be a good example of that. But you might be thinking more of things like a project management based. And I would say that's becoming a little more rare as well. You can certainly back it up. Most apps or many apps, you can create a backup, but in terms of having a full offline mode, that's a little more rare to find when it comes to our project management work. Sue Norman says, I use Google all the time on my MacBook Pro. They work great together. Sue, thank you for that feedback, especially for those who may be thinking of making a switch or maybe feel hesitant about sticking with Google, even if they are working primarily in a Mac or an Apple world. Let's see here. Richard, I want to get to this question as well. Richard says, I liked your video on Cloud HQ email tracking, but when I installed it, the permissions scared me. Complete access to my Gmail. Please reassure me that it is safe. Richard, that's a great question, and I want to answer this beyond just when it comes to Cloud HQ. I want to try and answer this as it pertains to really Google permissions as a whole, because you're not going to get that warning simply with an app like Cloud HQ. You're probably going to get a similar warning regardless of the email extension or depending on the type of extension that you may be accessing. One of the challenges is that when it comes to allowing, with again Google allowing other third-party extensions and third-party tools to manipulate things, right? Do cool things, productive things that you can't do in Gmail or Google Calendar or other apps on their own. This is giving them sort of superpowers, is that they kind of have to open the door all of the way. And really it's sort of on Google. If Google wants to try and slice and dice or segment out things a little bit, like, okay, we'll give you access to the contacts, but we won't give you access to other things. In this particular case, when it comes to Cloud HQ, and for most, if not all extensions that relate to email or relate to Gmail, because they're manipulating things like a delayed send, tracking those emails, reminding you about particular emails, because they're actually managing, that's their purpose, right? That's how they're helping you, is doing those cool things. Gmail has to give them access to almost everything, to allow them to do those things, right? It's not as if there's sort of 27 different layers of accessibility or permissions that Gmail has sliced and diced, and so the third-party extension can decide, well, we just need these three things. That's all we need to get in there. It's kind of like, okay, here's your three options, rest of the world. You can either have all of it, or we'll give you maybe this slice and this slice, but depending on what you want to do, what your software is doing. So in my case, Cloud HQ, I would consider a trusted application, right? I'm not saying that you should just say yes to that or to any other application, right? It does come down to your comfort level as well, right? You're giving permission when you hit that box or when you say allow or okay. I want to make sure that you feel comfortable. Don't just take my word for it, but hopefully I've helped answer your questions as to why that verbiage, right? Like why it's written that way and why Gmail and other applications have to be sort of wide open with giving those applications either full access or nearly full access. So a really great question there. Thank you so much for sharing. I want to dive back here and actually, you know what, since we're at the 9:40 mark, let's take another quick pause because I don't think everyone got to participate in the poll. I'm going to open up the poll again, and you're going to see that there's a bunch of reactions from the first individuals who participated and voted, but I want to give those who maybe joined a little bit later in today's live stream to participate as well. So I'm always interested in when people are working at their very best. When are people feel that they're performing at their best? And hopefully, if you know this time, if you know when you are at your productive best, hopefully you're doing something about it. And what I mean by that is that you're protecting some of that time. So if you're still on Slido and if you haven't voted yet in the poll, I would ask you to please do so. Make sure that you vote and tick off the one that you, the area or the time of day in which you are most productive. And if you haven't joined us yet here on Slido, you can just click the link in the description below or the pinned comment, or you can go directly to slido.com and enter in the event code Scott. I am going to be sharing a future video on Slido, giving some more tips and tricks, and especially how to integrate Slido with your PowerPoint presentations in the coming months. Slido is truly one of those tools. You may not think of it as a productivity app. I certainly wouldn't categorize it as a productivity app, but it is a fantastic tool for engaging your audience. I first started using Slido when we could still meet together and when I spoke at conferences and when I was running workshops live, but I find that Slido is just as effective when it comes to a Zoom meeting or like we're using it today here in a live stream. It makes it a lot more engaging, makes it a lot more fun, a lot more interactive, and there's a variety of things that you can do with it. I'm just doing a few, really two basic things here. I'm running a basic poll, and then we're using it as the Q&A function as well. But you can use Slido, the basic version of Slido, absolutely free. You might want to check it out. Maybe make sure that you watch my video. It was released, I think, early in 2020. I released a video on what it is and how to use Slido. Certainly worth checking out. If you're going to be hosting a lot more virtual meetings here in 2021, and I'd be surprised if many of you are not going to be hosting a lot more virtual meetings this year. Be sure to check out something like Slido. So the results, early morning, still very, very dominant. It looks like most of us feel that we're at our most productive. And it looks like late at night has been sort of squashed back near the bottom of this poll, along with the afternoon and before noon. Although the evening's got a few more votes there as well. So very interesting to me. Hopefully it's interesting to you as well to see what some of the other viewers, some of the other subscribers here to the Simpletivity channel feel is their most productive day. And as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, what I hope you do with this information, not what the majority is saying, not what the winner is, but for you, when it's your most productive time of the day, my question is, what are you doing about that? What are you doing about that sweet spot so that you can perform at your very best? If you know that early morning is your best time and when you're at your most productive, I hope you're getting up maybe extra early or a little extra early in the morning. I hope you're reserving some of that time or blocking out some time on your calendar so that you can make that your sweet spot. And that goes the same with everyone else, whether it's the evening, whether it's late at night. How could you make that even more productive, more special, a time where you can have your focus and accomplish whatever it is that you do, however it is that you serve other people? Make sure that you're blocking that time as a part of your day. All right, let's go back to the Q&A here. We've got some more good questions here. I'm going to highlight this one here. This one is coming from Anthony. Anthony says, I'm a power user of Todoist/Evernote. For 2021, I wanted to simplify my workflow, and I have turned to Google Keep and Google Tasks. Am I going to regret my choice? Number one, I'm going to invite the other viewers to chime in on this. If you are an existing or a former Todoist or Evernote user, what are your thoughts on Anthony's questions? And if you're already perhaps using Google Keep and Google Tasks, maybe you can give some feedback here as well. Be sure to share your thoughts in the live chat. So I guess, Anthony, the way that I would answer this question for you is that I would admit that both Todoist and Evernote are more robust and more feature-rich applications than both Google Keep and Google Tasks. So it might come down to how you have been using Todoist and Evernote. Now, you start your question by saying that you're a power user. So I imagine you're probably using some, maybe not all, but some of those more advanced features within those two applications. So if you're already a power user and you've been using it for some time, there may be a bit of a, oh, I can't do this with Google Keep. Oh, I can't do this, or I can't group my tasks or share my tasks the way that I'm used to or the way that I need to within Todoist. So, this might feel like a bit of a step down, although in the second part of your question here, he says you want to simplify your workflow. And so that may actually be the right course of action or a good recipe for you, right? Is to take an application and say, okay, I know it doesn't have all the same features, but I'm doing that on purpose, right? I'm putting in a few constraints, or I'm building in a few limitations so I can simplify my workflow. Just because you've got all the bells and whistles, just because you've got all the features and all the integrations, doesn't mean that that's going to make you more productive. As you know, here on the Simpletivity channel, I do think less is more, right? And that complexity is what gets in the way of us working at our productive best. So, again, you're probably familiar enough. I'm going to assume, you've already started with Keep and Tasks, so you're probably already a little familiar with some of those limitations. I might suggest that you just write down or specify what are the one or two things in your Todoist Evernote world that you're not willing to give up, right? What are one or two pieces of functionality or ways of working that you would not be willing to give up in your new world, in your new Google-centric world? And maybe that will help you decide as well. Looking forward to seeing. Be sure to keep an eye on the live chat to see what other people have to say as well. All right, let's, this question here has to do with virtual meetings. Dylan says, is there a way to pre-make poll questions on Google Meet before the meeting is set to start? Now, Dylan, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I do not yet consider myself a Google Meet expert. Despite being so Google-centric here on the Simpletivity channel, the one application that I am much more versed in is Zoom. I've been a Zoom user for many, many years, long before 2020 came upon us. I had been a Zoom user since around 2016 myself. And so that is where I'm much more versed, and in terms of making poll questions in advance and so forth. So I'm going to turn to the audience here, and maybe there's some people who can answer this question for us in the live chat. I am not sure if this is possible, if you can prepare poll questions in advance within Google Meet. If the answer is no, I would be surprised if it would be no for much longer, right? With Zoom taking such a dominant role in 2020 and still very, very strong here at the start of 2021, I know both Google Meet and Microsoft Teams have stepped up their game quite a bit. So if you can't do this yet, I would imagine you probably would be able to later in the year, but maybe there's someone in the live chat who can answer that question for us. Thank you so much for asking the question here. Security Bazinga, you've come back with some more information. Excuse me. I think what I'm going to do is see if I can come in here. See if I can. Oh, now I'm moving. Now I'm moving things around on my screen. I forget where I'm clicking on this. I'm going to take your link here and just take a quick look. I don't want to take too much time here. Maybe this is a question I can look at more detail in an upcoming meeting. But yeah, I'm going to come back to this one a little bit. I think I'm going to come back to this one. Thank you for asking the question. I'll take a look at that link, and perhaps I can either include it or address that topic in a upcoming video. Thanks for sharing. This is a good question. Again, Google related, in terms of productivity. Vitor says, do you use Google Assistant to help you stay organized? If so, what is your favorite trick? Well, you might be surprised that I actually am not a frequent user of Google Assistant. In fact, in many ways, I'm a little anti when it comes to devices listening to me. And I don't mean just my phone. I mean when it comes to other smart devices in my home, including my televisions, for example, including my smart thermostat. I do have a lot of smart products in my home, but you might be surprised for someone who talks a lot about technology and efficiency and saving time that I actually don't use voice assistants very often at all. Now, the one thing that I will do when it comes to my smartphone is I will engage it from time to time, right? Like I will physically engage it by scrolling up with my thumb so I can quickly do a voice search or input some voice to text in a note or something. Excuse me, something along those lines. But I do not keep my smart devices open for voice recognition and for me to input at any time. Now, that's my personal preference. That's my personal choice. I'm not saying it's the ideal one. I'm not saying it's the right one. I'd love to hear from some of you in terms of how you are using Google Assistant or Siri or other ways, maybe your Amazon Echo, for example. How are you using other tools in your home or in your workday to be more efficient? Maybe this is something I will revisit again in the future because I know there are a lot of good tips and tricks to be had there. So thank you so much for the question, Vitor. But as it stands right now, very little voice help or voice activated help as we speak. All right, well, we actually got a lot of questions in the queue. Again, if you'd like me to answer a particular one, make sure that you give that thumbs up, right? Give it a thumbs up beside someone else's question if you would also like that to be answered as well. This one here relates directly to our poll question about when you feel is the most productive time of the day. And I'm sure that there are some of you who are probably saying, I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure when I am most productive as the part of my day. So the question here anonymously says, how can I find the best time of day when I am at my productive best or when I am most productive? So I guess the simple question would be is that if you took everything off of your plate, let's say you didn't have to go to work today, you didn't have to accomplish any email, you didn't have any appointments, you didn't have any other commitments, whether that was virtual commitments or leaving your house or leaving the office, doing errands. If you didn't have anything like that, what time of the day would be your sweet spot where you have, the first thing that I like to focus on is energy. When do you have the most physical and also mental energy, because usually those two go hand in hand. When you're feeling that you got a lot of strength and a lot of motivation, and in my case here, another thing that I typically do in the mornings is I'm standing here at my standing desk. I got a little more energy, a little more oomph in my body and in my mind, so I like to stand. It makes me a little more freeing. Later in the afternoon, maybe not so much. You might not find me standing in that particular case. Excuse me. So that would be one of my first questions. When would you feel you have the most energy or the most focus? The other question that you might want to ask yourself is when it comes to a really difficult task, a task that is complicated, a task where there is an awful lot on the line or maybe an awful lot to lose. When would you schedule that type of task or that type of project? Because that might also give you a glimpse as to your sweet spot of the day, right? If you immediately say, well, no, I would certainly not do that first thing in the morning, well, that's probably not your most productive time either, right? If there's a particular time of day where that would be, or where that would seem to fit in more with your schedule, that might give you a clue as well as a part of your day. But I really encourage you, if you couldn't answer that poll question relatively quickly, right? If you had to stop and think about it, or if you're still thinking about it right now, I would strongly encourage you to take some time and try, maybe experiment with your schedule, but try to find what you feel is your most productive day and then block it out. Then reserve that time. For example, when it comes to producing and recording and even editing most of my videos here on the Simpletivity channel, it's almost always done in the morning because that's when I'm at my best. So almost all of the videos that you see on this channel were recorded sometime between the hours of like 8 and 11 a.m. in the morning, because I know I just don't have the same energy or even the same focus later in the afternoon. So great question there. Looks like we've got a couple of votes here for this one. Let me just take a quick sip of water, and then I'm going to get to this question from David. David says, by the way, it looks like you have much clarity in your mind. Do you meditate? And if you stress out, what do you do to avoid burnout? So David, thank you very much for your question. Thank you for participating today. I would say for the most part, I do feel like I have a relatively clear mind, and yes, meditation is actually a part of that. In fact, one of my commitments, I guess you could say one of my resolutions for 2021 is to meditate more consistently. And so far, I mean, it is only January. It is only the first few weeks of January, so I can't be too proud of myself. But so far, I have committed to that and has reserved some time for meditation each and every day. Now, what I've been using myself, which I find is very easy, is I've been using Headspace on my phone. Well, you can use it on your desktop or on your computer as well. But I find that Headspace has a nice variety of guided meditations, different voices, right? Different coaches, different people who can coach you through that, and a variety of different topics as well. But I do try to reserve just as little as 10 minutes in the morning to start my day with some meditation. And what I might add to that as it pertains to productivity and as it pertains to getting things done is I do that meditation just prior to planning or reviewing the rest of my day. And that's not by chance, right? That's not just by fluke. That's calculated, right? I want to spend some time getting that clarity of mind, getting some increased focus. So when I finish that 10-minute meditation, I can now transition, review my schedule for the day, review my task list, and say, what's really important, what's truly important, and what is not. Having that clarity of mind, I feel, makes a big difference when it comes to prioritizing, reprioritizing, and just maybe deferring some things on my list, saying, you know what, that's not as urgent or that's not as important as maybe I originally thought. So love to hear from some of you. Do you meditate? Do you do other practices? You know, I know sometimes meditation we have a skewed, or maybe there's a different definition. We all look at it slightly different. What is meditation and what is not meditation? For me, a lot of it is just having some silence, having a little bit of quiet for a short period of time. That can do wonders for bringing clarity to your day, especially as you're analyzing or looking at the things on your list. So David, thank you so much for the question there. Well, folks, we are near the top of the hour here. It's 10 a.m. my local time on the West Coast, and I know we've got people from all over the world who's joined us as a part of this web stream. I do want to thank you so much for your participation, for joining me in this live event, and let me know in the live chat, would you like to see this more often? Would you like to see this more frequently on the Simpletivity channel? As I mentioned at the beginning, I'm considering doing an Ask Scott Anything live stream like this twice a month, but I may even increase it beyond that. I may even like to make this a weekly tradition. If you found this helpful, if this is something that you would be interested in, be sure to let me know in the live chat, or perhaps in the comments on one of my videos here on the Simpletivity channel. Once again, I want to thank all of you for your participation. I want to thank you so much for subscribing here and supporting the Simpletivity channel. I'm looking forward to some very new and exciting videos here in 2021. And remember, being productive does not need to be difficult. In fact, it's very simple. Thanks so much, everyone. Take care.